All right, so starting part 2 here of gluing the dreads on Tarfful. You could probably already noticed if you watched part 1, I hadn't quite glued up yet, and I really made a mistake. It's not like a critical error or whatever, but I should have glued up some on the mask before I glued this first dread on, but I didn't, so I kind of had to try to put some glue under there and get some hair under there, and I didn't quite get as much as I wanted to, but it'll be fine. All of that's going to get covered up anyway, so I'm really not worried about it at all. But you can see on both of the sides here, I've glued up to the 8 and the 9 X's, and so the dread will probably sit somewhere like there, and then over here it'll sit somewhere about there. Sorry, I might not have had that on camera. So about there and about there. And so I've added a little bit of hair here just to kind of, as I'm hairing up the mask, I've added some hair here, and then also on the other side. And so I'm ready to glue on the dreads, or getting close to. What I need to do is put some hair, some hair like I've done here on top of this dread, so that it's sort of layered, and then I'll put the dread on top of that. So that'll be my next step. All right, so I went ahead and I sort of covered up that first dread with some rows of hair, and now I'm going to be putting a dread in this spot here, and then on this same spot over here. So right here and right about over there. So the next step is to get the dreads ready. So I'm gonna go and do that the same way I did before. I am gonna, as I cut the loop in the dread, I'm gonna try to thin it out more, try to make it smaller, to try and make this lump that I have a little bit smaller, the lump where I'm gluing down the dread. You can see in this one, I'm starting to get a lump, and I'm a little worried that it's too big. I think it'll be fine, because as this kind of builds up hair, it's really gonna cause the top of his head to be quite a bit taller, which is how it is in the movie, and to reference photos. But you can get a sense for how everything's kind of blending in here. It looks kind of awkward with just one dread hanging down, but my hope, having done 2 or 3 Tarfful masks before, is that it'll all come together as I proceed forward. So let me get these dreads ready. All right, so I went ahead and cut the loop on this 9th dread that I'm going to put on, and I sort of cleaned up the top of it just to kind of give myself sort of a uniform shape to work with at the top. What I'm going to do now is go in through the thinning shear with the thinning shears and see if I can really thin this thing out and just kind of debulk it to make it a little bit easier to glue down. Last time I was gluing down that dread, and there was so much hair that it really made it difficult to, one, just get it saturated with silicone, but also it kind of left me with some maybe too much bulkiness, maybe a little more than I wanted in that part of the mask. So anyway, I'm going to go through this with the thin shears, and let's get to it. Are you recording? So I wanted to take out some of the bulk, and so what I'm doing is I usually wait till the end of a mask before I do this, but because I'm getting a little more bulk than what I had anticipated with the size of the glue down on that dread, I'm just kind of go in as I go to heat shape it. But this is the process I do to heat shape, and I've already done this to this section. And I'm just putting a little heat on it, trying to be careful not to put too much heat on it. I don't want to like completely straighten it. I just kind of want it to sit and lay, so I kind of brush it, hold it, put some heat on it, and I just kind of keep doing that over and over. I did that over here. So probably what I'll do is I'll put 2 dreads on, put some more hair on, and then go through that process of heat shaping to do it. You can kind of already get a sense for this is dampened down just a little bit, whereas it was really sticking up before. So now it is time to gum up both dreads and put them on. I'm probably not going to film that because it's going to be the same process that I did with this first dread. So the next clip you'll see will have the 2 dreads on, and then we'll go from there.
Good.
So gummed up this next dread here, went in first, kind of put all the silicone down in the middle. This is definitely a 2-person job. Right now my wife is filming.
But you debulked it first.
Yeah, we definitely debulked it. Tried to, I don't know, we took at least a third, probably took a third of it out of this, above the zip tie. And so it's a lot smaller, easier to work with. Then put a bunch of silicone in the bottom. And now I'm really just kind of working the silicone in. We could probably do a little bit more silicone, but I think it's probably good to go. And so I'm just kind of trying to work it around, getting the silicone to touch as much of that hair as possible. And it's probably almost half the size of that last bundle. Much easier to glue on. So what I'm thinking of doing now is just trimming it to make it like this. And so what I'm gonna do is I'll take my glove off. Thank you. And then I'm probably gonna end up killing these scissors, but that's okay.
No, you can wash them.
And I'm just gonna trim this. We do it over a garbage can. And so this gives me that put another glove on here. And so I'm gonna let this set up. The next clip, I'm gonna let it set for just like another minute. I'm gonna get essentially this right here is what I want to glue down to the top of the mask. This shape right here. It's all lathered up with the silicone.
Looks much better.
And a lot more orderly than the last dread. And so it's going to go right about there, like so. And so now we got to get some silicone on here and get this thing set on there. So that'll be the next clip. Okay, so just kind of smearing a big thing of silicone right there. And then I'm gonna make sure that I'm not getting the silicone all over this. And switch spots here. Okay, and then I'm gonna put it down right here. And it's kind of moving around on me a lot right now, but it'll be okay once I just kind of work it into place. Definitely an angle here that's tough to work with.
Put it up on your shoulder.
Put what up on my shoulder?
Put the dread up on your shoulder so you have a better angle.
I need to have another glove on so I can use 2 hands. Anyway, we're gonna get this down here. I'm gonna have to probably I need to have another glove on my hand so I can push down on this side too and kind of shape it to the mask as it's setting up. So I'll probably start doing that here, but we'll have to stop this clip while I do that so I can put another glove on. So I've got that dread glued down. You can see it still looks messy. There will be another dread hanging right here between these two. So again, you start to get a sense for how it's going to get all covered up. And then I'll be layering, you know, more of this is like 6 or 7 inch hair on top of this dread. But before I do that, I'm going to put that number 8 dread here, which is just underneath where my finger is right here. But that's where the next dread will go. Then I'll layer hair on top of those 2 dreads. working my way up to the 6 and the 7 dreads, which will be next. And then all of the dreads for the back, the ones that hang down the back, will be done at that point. And so it'll probably get to see a pretty cool effect here in the back of, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dreads hanging down the back. And then eventually that first dread, the number 1 dread, will hang back down over the top of this number 10 dread too. Anyway, so I'm gonna get that other dread ready, that number 8 dread that goes right here ready, get that glued on, and then I'll have a clip after that. Okay, so I've got that other dread glued on. I just finished gluing on, so it's setting up. And while it is setting up, what I'm gonna start doing is just use this last bundle of hair here and start covering up those dreads, working my way towards these next 2 X marks that you see there for dreads 6 and 7. And then I'll try to add some hair on each side of the dreads that I just glued onto. Just basically working my way up while adding the dreads onto the top of this. Let's get a side profile just so we can get a sense for what's happening here with the side profile. You can kind of see this. It's pretty difficult to kind of tell how it's all going to come together at this point. I kind of only know just because I've done a couple of these, but I will say this one is a little bit different because these dreads are quite a bit more hair than what I've used in the past. So I'm kind of having to figure some things out on the fly here. So again, fingers crossed that this all comes together the way that I think it will. All right, so I talked before about how I was heat shaping it, but after I decided to show you the video of heat shaping it, I had already heat shaped that hair. So this time around, I've covered up those dreads, as you can see, the spots where they're glued on, with the 6 and 7 inch hair, and it's not heat shaped. So you can see it's given kind of an odd shape to the back of his head. And so what I'm gonna do is do some heat shaping here, and you get a sense for how that affects the shape of his dome. All right, so you get a sense there of how that heat shaping works. Some of this is just sort of working it in. The next 2 dreads that will go on will be these two spots right here. And then those dreads, if you could pan the camera back here, those dreads will hang right down between these two, and that will be essentially the 5 dreads that Tarfful has in the back. The other 5 being 2 on the sides that hang down the front of him, and then the 1 in the middle that hangs down and over everything in the back. So really there's 6 dreads that hang in the back, although that number 1 dread that's up here ends up being a little shorter just because it has a further distance to travel. And then the other thing too is that the heat shaping plays a role in that, but then I'm also going to be going in and doing a little bit of trimming just to kind of expose, just to ever so slightly expose those dread beads in the back. I don't want to cut too much because there's definitely like an overlap effect, but you get a sense there for how that particular bead's exposed. And that's the only bead that I have on right now. I need to get the other beads on these two because as you can see, like there needs to be a bead right about in here somewhere. But I'll probably put those on tomorrow night. I want to let some of the glue dry so you can get a sense though for where we're at right now. I'll turn them this way so we can get a good angle. You can see here, come over this way and get a shot like right, oh, there we go. You can kind of see where we're at right here. Kind of swing these. He does get more difficult to work with the more dreads that go on him. But you can see where we're at. I'm really liking right now, I'm really liking the shape of that back, even though I was concerned about it earlier. And then I am also really liking how the dreads are blending into the rest of the hair. That was a big problem in the previous masks I'd made, trying to make that work. And this time it's like almost, depending on the angle and everything, sometimes like where I have to look a little more carefully to see where that dread's actually blending into the mask. Anyway, that's going to wrap up this part of the video. I'll be back in the next part to put on those next 2 dreads up there, and then layer that hair on top of it. So I don't know how many parts this video will make up, but hopefully it's helpful to those of you that have this kit or that are wanting to do a Tarfful.